There are many people who have called us up on our helpline. We go to schools, seek admission. I remember when my younger daughter was seeking admission, there was a blind child who also contacted us for admission. And then I called up the principal of my daughter's school and said, there's this boy who's visually impaired. Would you like to consider giving him admission? And I also said that I'll be happy to, I and my organization would be happy to give you support in terms of helping your teachers cope with the child. And the answer was, Mr. Abraham, I know everything about disability, we can't take him. Dialogue closed. But then we kept asking other schools, and there was, of the 10-15 schools we talked, one school said, yes, we would like to give it a shot, provided you come and do some workshops with our teachers. And the child got him there, and the child is still there, and the child has moved to class 2 and is doing reasonably well. So there is definitely a situation of lack of awareness and the feeling that disabled people cannot really be part of the mainstream. So why are we just talking about inclusion? Or are we just talking about inclusion within the sector? Do people outside the sector actually think of inclusion? Now we have Techshare happening here, which is demonstrating a whole lot of technologies which actually enables people like me and other disabled people to perform tasks which otherwise we probably would struggle to do so. These are all enablers which will enable us to be part of the mainstream. There's a lot of work that a lot of NGOs and a lot of people are doing to actually create these enabling technologies. All of us are really excited when we see something. There's a gentleman in the exhibition who's talking about a shoe, which what is it called? Lechalo or something. It's a navigation tool. It's a mobility tool. But the point of the matter is that all these technologies, IIT Delhi produces a lot of stuff. They do a lot of research. There are other technology institutions which are doing. The Science and Technology Mission is involved with encouraging research and development work. But the unfortunate thing, great ideas don't see the light of day as far as markets are concerned. Because immediately the markets are not interested. The marketing companies are not interested because they don't see money in it. They don't see value in it. Now coming back to the Planning Commission, as I said yesterday, the last meeting that we had over there, the secretary kept saying, we've got this fund for providing for caregivers, this fund for sheltered workshops, this fund for blah, 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 blah. And they said, that, allocations are there, and, then the member secretary said, no, this is too much, we need to cut down and all that. So that's when I just got up and said that, are we disabled people a burden on the country? Are we a liability? Perhaps we are as things stand today. But have you ever thought of us as potential resources? Now, this learned crowd over here, so I don't need to give you examples, but there are visually impaired people who are practicing in the Delhi High Court. There are visually impaired people who are practicing in the Bombay High Court, Chennai, in the Madras High Court, in Hyderabad. There are a number of people in the legal profession. There are a number of people in the software industry. People there as software developers. There are people there as programmers and so on and so forth. There is a travel agent, for instance, one of the bigger travel agents of Delhi, Noida, who happens to be a blind gentleman. He runs a company from Noida. He started off as a one-man entrepreneur. Today he has about 45 people working with him, 2 offices, one in Delhi, one in Connaught Place, and is doing huge business, travel agent. There's another visually impaired person I know in Delhi who runs a successful public relations company. There are visually impaired people who are in the journalism sphere. There's a journalist who works with the Indian Express in Delhi who is visually impaired. There's a very senior editor who's a journalist with The Hindu in Chennai. There's similarly a very senior journalist with Deccan Herald in Bangalore. There's another journalist who works at the Times of India in Mumbai. So, journalism, software development, law perhaps not, but these are all areas which perhaps 15, 20 years ago would have been thought as no-nos for blind people. But visually impaired people, with technology emerging, with education being available, have done it. So there is no two ways about the fact that we are definitely a potential resource. But for a person to become a resource, the resource needs to be developed, right? Without education, without training, a resource is still raw, isn't it? So, is the country investing in high quality education for blind people? About a year ago, I made my first visit to Orissa, and I was told that there are 18 government-aided blind schools over there. Surprisingly, none of them have trained teachers. I visited the education department of Orissa, and I found that the people who run the show do not really know much about education of the blind. And I told you about the story of the chief secretary yesterday. It was also of Orissa. And he didn't know much either. So the point of the matter is that the people who run this country have not given enough thought about people with disability. So is what is happening in this country just one-way traffic? Where we are doing research, coming up with technology, we are kind of talking about various things, we're talking about ideologies and so on. And then the Prime Minister, when approached, yes, he does say the right words, but is he really concerned and sees the disabled people as part of the constituency of this country? As I said yesterday, when we talk about international agreements, do issues of disability and improvement of people with disability, exchange of technology, exchange of ideas for creating a better environment and facilities for people with disability in India, do they become part of the discussion? When we have if Prime Minister Manmohan Singh has a discussion with President Obama, will disability be on the agenda? I don't think so. Now, if you go back to the history of the disability movement in India, I'm told that Mr. Lal Advani was a director in the Ministry of Social Justice, Ministry of Welfare at that time in the 1950s, when the Minister for Social Welfare actually recognized the need for doing something with people with disability. But the true movement actually started perhaps in the early 1980s when National Federation for the Blind actually went about asking for rights to employment, rights to education, and so on and so forth. And we disabled people over the years are seen as people who keep demanding stuff. I might not be entirely correct, but that's the predominant understanding. And certain sections are also seen as very aggressive. I won't debate that either. But the fact of the matter is, we got an act in 1995. And the question I would ask this House and ask myself is that act, yes, it is talking about various rights, but is it an act of, is it truly a rights-based approach, or is it still a continuation and extension of the charity approach? This is something we need to think about. Because we feel that we have got our rights. Many of our brothers and sisters have got jobs. But are they getting assignments to do? There's a good friend of mine whom I met yesterday, Shadab Hussain. Is he here in this room?
Yes, sir.
Now, Shadab Hussain had, to begin with, joined. I'm going to tell a little bit about your story. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Now, Shadab was shaping up to join SCORE Foundation. And he came in for 2 days. But before he came in, he told me that just the previous night his dad had called him up to say that he had got a government job and his father insisted that he should join the government job. So I said, okay, meaning government job due to security and, and rest of your life is taken care of. So he came for 2 days and then he left. And a few months after that, I get a call from him saying that, I need assignments. Do you have any assignments? Can I do some writing work for you? So I said, for God's sake, you're doing a job. How can you do assignments for others? You're violating the law. He said, well, I come to the office in the morning, sign my attendance, I sit the whole day and go back in the evening. Is that right? Now, is that called employment? Is that called recognizing our ability? On paper, they have kind of yielded to our rights. They have given us our right. But it is very evident and very obvious that it is a charity act. And ladies and gentlemen, if we have to change this, it's not good enough to just keep saying rights approach. Because the government and the society will continue to give us offerings. But the fact of the matter is there genuine change. In 2025, will we still be having the same discussion? And my understanding is that we have to kind of now move to a situation where our campaigns actually are focused on advocating and lobbying with government to actually, the strategies would have to be worked out. Now, I'm just placing before the House just a principle where we move away from saying that we are disabled, we have ability, we have rights, to saying that we can contribute to your economy. Not to your economy, to our economy. We can contribute to our economy. We have evidence that we can contribute to our economy. There are people who are professionals working and contributing. Just yesterday I learned that Dinesh Kaushal is he here? No.